now I'll turn it over to Mayor Rogers, who will provide what's happening on the ground here in Fredericton. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Adam, for sharing what's happening. In some ways, feels like you're a little ahead of us with your housing needs assessment and your strategy. And but it's work I think that all of us have turned our minds to in recent years. I'll give you a little bit of situational awareness as far as Fredericton goes, where we're at. We too have been a growing city over the past 10 years. We've grown by a little more than 10,000 people, so a little more than 1,000 a year. We too experience a low vacancy rate. It's been below 2% for around 4 years and longer than that hovering, given that we know that 4% is where we like to be when the market takes care of itself. That has been causing some of the housing challenges that we've been having. But I just have to say, I've been on council since 2012. We started feeling the heat of this, I feel, so it makes me, I wish that we had paid closer attention to it earlier, because I felt we could have gotten out ahead of the game. As recent as like 2016, 17, we were starting to feel, but at that time, that was when we really thought there would be market correction. And the market correction just didn't occur for some of the reasons I think Richard so clearly pointed out to us. So we have this low vacancy rate. It still hovers, yet Fredericton has had record development numbers. So in 2021, we saw $187 million in development. The first 6 months of 2022, we had 134 million in development, but of that, $88 million was in residential development. So first 6 months of 2022, 88 million bucks was spent in our city in development. 459 residential units is what that equates to. And of those 459 units, 170 of them are actually considered affordable by one definition or another. So whether that be through a lot of it, they would have been units that access different programs. Certainly some of them are subsidized. We've had some non-profit developments occur in Fredericton that have been a chunk of that, accounted for a chunk of that. So I'm not certain that trend of which is actually close to a 25%. I'm not so certain that we have put anything in place that's going to ensure that we continue that. But it just speaks to, we have been having some affordable development take place in the city over in 2022. A lot of the work that's been done, I have to give a little bit of a shout out. We have been giving thought to it at a council and at a staff level. A lot of the work is guided from, Fredericton has an affordable housing committee, and it is this multi-sector committee that is made up of, I would say, knowledge bearers, a lot of expertise in various areas, whether that be in the real estate market, in the private development market. We have Billy Schulten with us today. He served in that committee for many, many years. We have a lot of nonprofit housing developers who sit on that committee, as well as we have our partners from government. There's a lot of knowledge, and they have been guiding the work, particularly as of late. We've been guiding a lot of our work. I chair that committee. Even as when I became mayor, I continue to chair that committee, because I believe that housing is like many of you, housing is the biggest challenge we have. It is the greatest barrier to us achieving our goals. And our goals, we recently became a CMA, and our goals for growth are real. We want to continue to grow, not for the sake of growing, but I think because of what that growth can offer to our residents. But we're not able to do it unless we can house people. So we have been making some, I would say the city's been making some bold moves. We've definitely been trying to work with nonprofit developers to incite and to encourage development, whether that be through land donations, whether that be through, we've given money to various projects, we've waived development fees. So we've been doing things with the non-market developers. We've been trying to work with I would say with the market developers with bonus density zoning. That has come with mixed. I'll be really on a panel later with, and Willie's here, and I think he can talk about how well that works. The bonus density zonings great, but it's only great if you can help get the subsidization through the province to make the affordable rent, those units more affordable. So we've had mixed success on that, but it is something that we've done. Fredericton was out ahead of the charge, was leading the charge on that. That's been part of our zoning bylaw for many years, the bonus density zoning. So we are looking at doing things. Something else that we have done in our municipal plan, we are very much looking at urban densification and both so to densify, and also we've identified growth areas so that we can make the investments in the infrastructure so that the private development community does not need to make in those investments. So that has helped a little bit. So I would say that we are doing lots of different things to try to incentivize more and more development. This is a pretty new game for all of us. I know for many, many years, we thought this is what the province does. We've now realized, no, we've got to step in. So these are some of the things that the city has done. We wanted to be more intentional in those efforts. So the Affordable Housing Committee recommended to council that the city embark on a housing needs assessment and affordable housing strategy. And we have done that. We spent about the past 18 months out doing that. We did our housing needs assessment. I would say it uncovered similar things to what the Miramichi housing needs assessment uncovered. There are gaps. There are people who are particularly vulnerable in our area. There are the high acuity homeless people for whom we do not have housing shelter, and for whom we need to partner with other levels of government to develop housing with wraparound services. So that is certainly one group of people where there is a gap in housing. But also, it's single moms, it's elderly folks, it's Indigenous peoples, we can point to all the gaps. The housing needs strategy identified really where we need to be providing housing. And it also looked projected where their need is going to be. And it's really people who are on fixed incomes, people who have never been vulnerably housed before, who are going to be. So the needs assessment, I would say, uncovered where it is that we need to put a lot of focus. And we are doing just that. We then developed a strategy out of that, did a lot of public engagement, stakeholder engagement, working with both the non-market and the market developers. We did a survey with our residents, had a great response. And out of that, we developed a 25-page strategy. There were 13 key recommendations. And then we have just synthesized all of that information into a one-page action plan. And for the first year, we said, we need to get on this. We need to start working yesterday on this, which we already have. As I've mentioned, we've already been doing much, but in the coming year, we've set out some really specific goals. It just went to our Economic Vitality Committee for approval this past week. We'll come to council on Monday for approval, but I will say everyone around our council table knows that this is a priority. So I'm anticipating that we'll be moving on these ASAP. But I can tell you the highlights from that action plan are that the city needs to hire an affordable housing development specialist. So we also know that this work, it is so pressing, and there's never been anyone identified at the city whose job it is to make sure that we create more housing. And that is really just the goal. Make sure that our city builds more housing. The city of Fredericton does not want to build more housing, but we want to work with the development community to ensure that they'll build more housing, and that they're successful in finding what they need to build more housing. So this housing development strategist, we're looking to strengthen relationships with the non-market and the market development community, because we think that there might be some opportunities for pairing those folks. Our nonprofit housing sector does not have the capacity to build the number of units that we need built. They really, I think, are going to need to work with a private developer, but we need someone to make that connection, to make that an appealing marriage. And probably the best way to do it is then to link into some of the funding that's been made available through the federal government, access that money. It can come, it goes through the province, which is a little trickier, but it also can come to municipalities directly. The city of Fredericton opted not to develop a housing authority, but instead work to make more robust our nonprofit sector. And we think one of the ways we can make them more robust is to help them to access funding, to connect them with for-profit developers. So that is actually the key recommendation that came out that we're working on immediately, and that is to create this housing development specialist who wakes up every morning and thinks, how can I get more housing in the city of Fredericton? We also want to incentivize the nonprofit, the nonprofit sector in particular, but also the for-profit sector for how it is that we can create more of the type of housing that we need. We want to provide more city-owned land for housing, because we know that that is one of the many costs. The cost of building is so much for everyone. To then be able to build a type of housing that has a lower than market rate, it's hard, and it is hard in this economic dynamic. So we're trying to figure out how we can free up some of our own city land for housing. Also, zoning flexibility. So although that's not the sexy one, it's probably the least exciting. It maybe is where there's the most opportunity. It's the levers that we can pull internally, right? And we know that there's a lot that we can do in zoning. We're looking at short-term rentals. We think that that has had an impact particularly in the downtown areas of Fredericton. But I would say if you look throughout the city, if you look at one of those heat maps, that if you go to Airbnb or VRBO and you see it's throughout our city that, there's 100 to 200 units being rented out every day for short-term rentals. They're units that should be housing people permanently. It's also, and that is, so we're going to look at developing some zoning around that, the feasibility of that. But also zoning, like Adam spoke about, how to have secondary units on properties, granny suites. We're looking at, is it tiny homes? And we have lots in our downtown Fredericton that are actually three lot sizes deep. Can somebody maybe build a little tiny house in one of those? So we're looking at all of that in zoning flexibility. The other thing we're doing is we want some of that federal and provincial money in our municipality. And but we don't want to be getting it as the city of Fredericton. We instead want to work with a developer to be getting that money. So we're going to be putting a lot of focus on that in the first year, because that money is eventually going to dry up. The feds have been very generous creating this funding, but I think we've seen the feds have been relatively generous in a lot of areas over the past couple of years, and that is going to change in the future. So we want to seize that opportunity now. We will look at enhancing the density bonusing. We already do it somewhat, but we will look at enhancing that. We are also looking at inclusionary zoning. I think, like many of you, and probably like many people in your cities, we thought that inclusionary zoning was going to be this silver bullet. If only we told every developer that they had to make 25% of their units or whatever, that would be the solution. Research has actually indicated that maybe that's not in the sizes of developments that we're building in our cities. That's maybe not going to make the difference that we need. We might need something more robust. So we did embark, Fredericton was one of the cities that embarked on doing that study about inclusionary zoning. So we have that information now, but I don't think it is necessarily the solution that we're all looking for. And the other thing that we want to continue doing is what we're doing right now, which is amplify the messaging on that. It's working with the other municipalities across the province to talk about how important this is. Our individual voices might not have a lot of power, but if you ramp that up to cities across the province, amplify that message, I think we can make a real difference. We saw it yesterday meeting with the Premier. We'll see what comes out of that, but he has definitely heard us. To have him stand yesterday and say that housing and addressing housing needs and mental health and substance abuse disorder challenges is the priority indicates to me that he's been hearing us, that our messaging is working. We can't let up now. We have to keep talking about it, keep talking about it, keep talking about it. So that's what we're doing now, is getting together and talking about it, I think, up on this stage. So perhaps that's our next step. But that is a very quick summary of what we are doing in our city. There's so much more that I could say. I didn't get to talking about the different housing types that we need, which that is something else that our needs assessment identified. Lots more that we can say, and maybe we'll have a chance yet to do that. But one thing I will tell you, when you decide that you're going to embrace how to address housing, it shifts. There's like a light switch or something goes on. We had to fight around the council table for a lot of years to make housing a priority. And we had some naysayers who were like, we're not touching it. Once we go down that path, there's no coming back. The province is going to put it on us. We're going to be responsible, blah, blah, blah. But once you just say, these are folks who live in our cities and we need to ensure that they're housed so that we can all fulfill our objectives. And once you say, yeah, that's going to be a priority, you can then really focus a lot of energy there and make some change. We're making some, we have a lot more. There's a lot more to do, but embracing it is the only way that we're going to move forward in this. So thank you.